So looking at how your timeline works with your source, you'll notice that mine was a little picky there. I'm going to go back and click on just video 2 so it's selected. Now when I click on overlay or insert, it should be inserting it just on that particular layer. Right now it doesn't want to. So you know what I often do? I often just drag it where I want it to go. Just click on it and drag it to whichever timeline you want. I almost never use this insert and overlay buttons because I find them kind of annoying. Now, looking at your main timeline. Understanding the controls here is just as important. Now you've got a lot of different things to look into. You'll notice that you have a big, huge timeline, and that timeline will exist for as long as you keep on adding footage to it. At the top of that timeline, I want you to notice this is basically a project view timeline squisher. I don't know. It just changes it so that you're looking at just a smaller portion of your timeline. Instead of all of it, you can be looking at a smaller portion. Now you can move that around the entire thing and move around your project. Underneath that you have your blue timeline indicator, which indicates where you're at currently, and you can just click and drag and move that, and you know that's called scrubbing. You guys are used to that. You can also scrub the same thing on the timeline above because this is your program, but it's not very accurate. I'd almost always scrub on the timeline itself. Underneath that, you'll notice that you have this gray bar, and it's got a little grab to it as well, little grab indicator. This is your work area. That work area can be very, very important because that work area determines often what you're going to be rendering out when you finish this program. So you want to be aware of where the ending and starting point of that timeline is. And you'll see that it snaps pretty easily to existing footage items. Now go ahead and move your timeline indicator so it just snaps on one of your universal leaders, or even only one of them would be fine. So you don't have a whole lot there. Now the reason why is because the next thing underneath it you'll see is this red line. That red line indicates footage which has not been rendered. And before you want to be able to see your program in real time, and before you render it out, you want everything to be rendered. Now when you render, I want to point out, I'm going to go to my thaw space to where I'm saving this document to show you. Here's the folder I'm saving things. Right now, when I saved this project, it created all these files for me. It created the sample project file, and this is your main project file, which is most crucial because it has all the instructions for what Premiere should do. Encoded files folder happens automatically. Your autosave folder happens automatically, and it has one autosave version in there. And then this preview file happens automatically. If I look in here right now, there's nothing. There won't be anything in there until I actually preview this. And I can preview it two ways. I can go to the command under Sequence, Render Work Area, Render Effects, or I can press the Enter key. And you'll see this is rendering a preview. And if I look back in that folder, I'll find that rendered file. And notice it says rendered with all these numbers. Be aware that those rendered files are not essential files because they are rendered from whatever you have on your timeline. They're not absolutely essential. But they might appear that way when you delete them and open up your project, which we'll do later. Anyway, there's some other things to be aware of, and that is which timeline you're on, and which audio timeline you're on, and we'll look at those in just 1 second.